Hey everyone, Andrew here from the Atlanta Low Brass Academy, and in today's Fundamental Tidbit Tuesday, we're going to be talking about sight reading, why it's important, and how you can practice it. So what does it mean to be a good sight reader? Well, essentially, it just means that you're able to have a new piece of music be put in front of you, and you're able to perform it at a very high level with very minimal preparation time. More often than not, just right when you see it. So I want to talk a little bit about why it's important to be a good sight reader. Well, one, you're going to become a more proficient reader of music. You're going to have a better understanding of the notation marks on the page, whether that's time, tempo, stylistic, and you're just going to be a more well-rounded reader. It's also going to help you learn more accurately faster. So let's say your band director puts a new piece of music on your stand. Let's say you don't have as much preparation time as you would like or normally have. Well, being a good sight reader is going to help you be able to execute that music accurately without all that preparation time. You're going to get that accuracy much faster. And then finally, if you're thinking of becoming a more advanced player and you want to start taking some auditions, whether that's at a college, an orchestra, or a military band, sight reading is almost always a major aspect of those auditions. The judges that you're going to be playing for want to hire or take someone on who is able to have a piece of music be put in front of them, and they want them to be able to play it accurately right then and there. So how can we practice sight reading? Is that something we can practice? Well, the answer is yes. There's actually an abundance of materials online. If you search on the internet, sight reading examples, you can play and practice sight reading pretty much anything you can find on there, as long as it's in a clef you can read and it's within the range of your instrument. One thing that I really like to do in preparation of practicing sight reading is I practice my scales very often. My major scales, my minor scales, and if you know some modal scales like a pentatonic or a whole tone or a Dorian, whatever, get really good at practicing scales. So that way, when you see these scale patterns in these sight reading examples that you're trying to tackle, you don't have to spend too much time thinking over all the fingerings. You can just notice that, oh, that's a scale that I practiced before, I'm good. And then finally, training your ear. I would argue this is the most important thing that you can do to help yourself become a good sight reader. So listen to music often. It doesn't have to be music for your instrument. It can be any music, but just listen to music and see if you can recognize certain intervals, like a perfect fifth or an octave, and really know what those intervals sound like. So that way when you see them on these sight reading examples, you can hear those jumps. And you don't have to be so focused on pushing down the right button or the right slide position. You can just hear the music as you're reading it and play it more efficiently and naturally. So in just a minute, we're actually going to have a sight reading example put at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to go through this process together and play it together. So go ahead and make sure to get your horns ready. But before we do that, I want to quickly talk about my mental process as I'm reading and seeing a piece of music for the first time in preparation for sight reading it. There's essentially 6 short things that go through my head that I want to make sure I cover before I pick up my horn and play it. The first one being key signatures. What is a key signature? Are there multiple key signatures? And going through those scales in my head to make sure I am ready to go with those scale patterns. Next being the time signature. Is there just one time signature? Are there multiple time signatures? That might affect how I phrase a certain idea depending on the time the music is in. Look for the tempo markings. Does it say quarter note equals 96? Does it say half note equals 60? Understand about how quick those different tempo markings are. You can practice with a metronome on your phone and just play with different tempos and kind of get an idea of where they sit. So that way when you see it, when you're reading the music for the first time, you have a general understanding of how quickly that tempo goes. Next being style. What are the style markings? Are there accents? Are there tenutos, marcatos? Does it say dolce? Does it say joyously? You know, understand the different style markings so that way you have a really good idea of not just the notes and rhythms, but really how the music is supposed to feel and sound right from the get-go. Look for accidentals and complicated passages. Not every sight reading example is going to be very clean and straightforward. There could be accidentals, there could be tricky licks. Go over, like if you play euphonium and tuba, go over the valve combinations for those accidentals or complicated passages, or if you're playing trombone, go over the slide positions, and just make sure that when you do pick up the horn and you're performing it for the first time, that those don't catch you off guard. And then finally, once you have a good understanding of how the sight reading excerpt is, just sing it in your head and finger or move the slide along as you're singing it in your head. And going back to an earlier point I made, if you listen to music a lot and you get a really good understanding of intervals, this is where that's going to come in handy really nicely, because you can sing and get those intervals accurately in your head as you're, moving the valve or slide along, and you're going to be really well prepared to actually execute it. So in just a second, we'll have a piece of music appear at the bottom of our screen, and we will take 60 seconds to go over those 6 key points real quickly, and then we'll perform together. So I've got a timer set on my stopwatch, and then I'll count us down and we will begin. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. So key signature 3 flats, stays that way the whole time. Time signature 3/4 stays that way. Tempo 120, about right there. Style, we got mezzo forte joyously, and then piano dolce. Let's really contrast those, and then a crescendo to forte at the end. Accidentals, first half looks clean, then we got a lot in the second half, especially in those first few measures, and then some downwards arpeggios. Sing through it. All right, we still had 6 seconds left, so we got through that pretty fast. All right, so that's our time, and I'll give us 2 bars of 3, and then we'll be in. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So how'd you do? It's all right if you made a lot of mistakes, especially if this is your first time practicing sight reading like this. Just do a little bit every day, and of course with a new etude, so you're really practicing those key concepts of sight reading. There's a couple things to remember. In that example, when we were singing, I was kind of humming out loud. If you're in a real audition, I'd recommend not humming, audibly. Just do it all in your head so that the judges aren't hearing you. If you make a mistake, keep going. The last thing you want to do is make a mistake and stop. Because maybe the judges didn't notice it. And if you just keep going, they'll never know there was a mistake. Make sure you exaggerate all the dynamics and all the articulation markings. If it says mezzo forte in the beginning and piano in the second half, I might play the mezzo forte up more like a forte, so that way when I go to the piano, that dynamic contrast is really exaggerated and very apparent. The same thing with articulation markings in time. And then finally, just have fun. I know sight reading can be very stressful and daunting at times, but if you're having fun, it's probably going to communicate across the horn that you're having fun, and whoever's listening to you will enjoy it more. So I hope you learned something and enjoyed this Fundamental Tidbit Tuesday, and I will see you in the next video. Happy practicing.